So without further ado, let me introduce Ashley. Dr. Ashley Norris serves as ProctorU's Chief Academic Officer and Chief Compliance Officer. Dr. Norris has a background in policy and procedure development, regulatory and accreditation compliance, and assessing and reducing potential risk, both internally and in collaboration with external partner organizations. She leads ProctorU's academic partnerships and works with organizations and institutions on developing policies, best practices, and procedures to support their innovation, accreditation, and accessibility needs. Dr. Norris has spent nearly 15 years in higher education as both a faculty member and administrator across major institutions, including University of Alabama and Samford University. Most recently, she served as the Dean of Programmatic Accreditation and Regulatory Affairs at the University of Phoenix. And there she led thought leadership on ethics and integrity in education and continues to spearhead similar efforts to ProctorU's key initiatives in academic integrity. We welcome Dr. Norris and Ashley. Let me get you started, and you can obviously choose to chime in with any other comments, but first of all, tell us a little bit about ProctorU and what they do and what you're, involved in now with ProctorU.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay, Matt?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and I look forward to your questions. I want this to be a really comprehensive Q&A. We're living in odd times, to say the least, especially with COVID-19 and everything that's been happening at institutions, especially in the last semester. So I'm happy to address those concerns and all kinds of questions and answers to my ability. So sure, I'll talk a little bit about ProctorU. So we're a 12-year-old remote proctoring company, the oldest and the first remote proctoring company. We were founded kind of coming out of an online university. Our founder, Jared Morgan, he was looking for a solution of, in essence, how to ensure the credibility and integrity of online exams. So he started using a webcam, and it started out just really in kind of a lab computer setting, and then it grew into now we're going to proctor. Last year alone we proctored well over 2 million exams, and we're projected to be even more this year. And so over the course of the past 12 years, our platform has really grown from just watching test takers through a webcam into a really robust platform that includes artificial intelligence, other really, innovative technologies to ensure academic integrity of exams. Our ProctorU has also, we've, traditionally been in higher education and proctoring online exams, but in the past few years, we've also started proctoring certifications, admissions testing, and kind of expanded our breadth of what we've been able to proctor. In January, we merged with an exam delivery company. So, you guys are really familiar with learning management systems like Canvas, Blackboard, et this is an exam delivery platform called Measure. And really, we wanted to have that capability, not only for our professional testing space, but, if there was opportunity in higher ed where someone needed to use psychometricians and things of that nature. So that's also, that's new news because that was January 2020, but it's also kind of expanded our capability to not only do higher education, but like I said before, the certifications, high stakes testing, which only also makes our entire platform more secure with that investment. So that's in a nutshell ProctorU. And, I'm just kind of scrolling through some of the attendees and where everyone's from. I know we have some ProctorU users in this session. So I'm excited to see you all virtually. Too bad, we can't all be together in Chicago, but that's all right. Or could not be.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
glad you recognize some attendees too. Yeah. That's great. So yeah, to get us started on the conversation here, what we obviously wanted to talk about was the big transition. Everybody had to go through this, and life as we know it has changed a bit. So how has that rapid transition to online learning impacted online proctoring?
Sure. Well, the good news for us is that we already had, because of a major impact with Hurricane Maria for one of our proctoring locations, we already had made it pretty mission critical a few years ago that we were going to have locations across the world. So if there was a natural disaster of some sort, I don't think we, predicted a pandemic, right? But that if there was a natural disaster of some sort, that our proctoring location, it wouldn't take us all down and we wouldn't be able to operate. And, I didn't come up with that plan. That's obviously CEO and our operations people, but we did. So, and just so you guys are clear, if you've never used ProctorU, we have proctors. We have really about 1,000 proctors right now that watch test takers take an exam through a webcam, or that's our premier service, our Live Plus service. They actually are sitting at proctoring facilities around the world, which are all, so just imagine, there's 200 proctors in a facility and they're being supervised by managers, and they're in that proctoring location. We also had a virtualized workstation type of continuity plan to where if one of the proctoring locations for some reason, such as a pandemic, went down, we could, set up ways for them to work from home and to be able to proctor from home. So that was kind of our proctor virtualization initiative that had been set up as well. And again, that's a big part of business continuity. So, on our side, we were probably as prepared as we could be from the standpoint of if, a few proctoring locations, there was mandated stay-at-home order, that we could still be up and running and we could still service our clients. So that ended up being the best news, or on our end, for us to be able to service institutions, because we work with a lot of institutions already, primarily online programs, some face-to-face courses where the classes are either too large that they can't, or they were just outsourcing the testing experience so they could have more classroom time for teaching and learning. So we already had this kind of hybrid model where we were able to, we can serve not only online programs, but instructors who, have computer-based testing and just do their assessment with us online. Now, when, schools started to have the discussion of, are we going to shut down? Are we not going to shut down? We very rapidly, to the best of our ability, started to try to work with, especially the institutions that were already partners of ours, and say, okay, we want to work with your faculty. We're going to try to make sure we have the proctors available. We want to service you guys. So those plans started, I would say that was probably February, March. And some of that was because we actually had other organizations that were already having issues with students with international students and large student populations abroad that were getting stuck, and students in China specifically, and they had no way of testing them because they couldn't go on campus. So that was really our first indicator early. I don't think at that point we knew, that the majority of all institutions would pretty much be closed, at some point. But that was kind of the trajectory of things. So that's, we just worked as closely as we could with our current partner institutions, and then, try in discussions with new institutions where we could, on trying to find availability and make sure that their students, if they needed to take some objective assessment, that we could service them. So that's kind of, that's our side of the story. We also, interestingly, we also had a couple of institutions that we had to figure out strategic partners in order, because they had paper pen exams, and just to work with them to try to, quickly upload those exams. And they had an LMS on campus, but it, wasn't used widespread. It was used for only certain courses. So that was another kind of new thing for us, was to find partnerships and actually to, our big, large scale conversion projects very quickly to create, put exams online. So, and there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, running around the clock, faculty training, faculty onboarding, making sure faculty were comfortable. That was the biggest thing to us. I mean, the other biggest thing is making sure students are ready, prepared, as familiar, so they could be comfortable using the system. So that's a really long answer to a short question, but those are all the things that we were basically the past few months have been central in focus.
Right. And I mean, there's obviously a lot of factors and a lot of different ways that it affects institutions, faculty, students, and then obviously understanding from your perspective as well. So, that leads to my next question then. So how did, all the COVID-19 and shelter in place and the restrictions that came with it change how you provided, proctoring services? Did that have an effect, or was it in areas maybe most people would not have thought of, or how did it affect you in general?
Well, absolutely. So a couple of the biggest things in the US is one, a lot of individuals, so college students, if they were in apartments or they couldn't go home, or they essentially were also there with their roommates, right? So one of the largest things about that we do in remote proctoring is you have to have a secure environment, and no one can interrupt and things of that nature. So we had to reevaluate some of those measures and just still ensure that we had the security for the exam and academic integrity in the exam when you have group, as well as being very clear about what bandwidth requirements and just really trying to prepare each student to make them feel comfortable because they're going under this change. There was a lot of fear and uncertainty that, people had a lot of questions. So really it was just being a little bit more flexible, I think, and understand and still maintaining that integrity. But okay, what kinds of things can we do just to also ensure that, there's not compounded anxiety? And maybe that, that's how I think of it as well. I mean, my background's in psychology. So, what can we do to make them feel comfortable, make them feel prepared when they also feel kind of like they're forced to use this platform and this big change. So, trying to support them from our perspective, give faculty a lot of information from our perspective and things of that nature. So one thing that actually came out of this is that in partnership with some other proctoring companies and several institutions, we created a student bill of rights. And its focus is on digital work, but it's on, I can share the link with all you guys, but it's something that we're kind of, in the meantime, we're working with institutions to help put us together. We're still kind of in a period of gaining feedback, and it's kind of out for public, critique, and we have a form to fill out. But that was something we thought was pretty important because we were getting a lot of questions about, students about, okay, you're recording me, what's happening with that data, and while we know we comply with international privacy laws and GDPR and all this, some of that stuff is just, you have to communicate it to students to make them feel comfortable. So that was, I would say, the other largest piece of it.
Right. And I think that, was one of the, you mentioned just now, comfort. This whole process, and especially for those who are not used to being online, the comfort level was so discombobulated and thrown off for so many people that then they started thinking about things they may not have ever thought of before, like who has this information, who's recording it, that kind of thing. And now seems to be the process for everyone, is gaining that comfort level regardless of how long institutions operate in this capacity or whatever restrictions may come around in the fall. For the students, or from the student perspective as you know it, what has been some of the biggest concerns shifting to that online assessment? And I would imagine that's especially the students who were not taking online courses before all this took place.
Right. Well, really just a couple of things. One is scheduling, them getting used to, I need to schedule my exam, and kind of coordinating between the faculty, communicating that, helping students out with knowing, when they can take their exam, what the exam windows, and not even necessarily scheduling, but understanding, you can take your exam, your instructor, professor is giving you these 2 days to take your exam. So communicating that, you know, in the appropriate amount of time, getting them comfortable, and then really the technology of it. So I talked about the data a little bit before, but bandwidth, what are the technology requirements, making sure they're using, you know, I mean, our platform can be used laptops, desktops, you know, but just making sure that they understood, for instance, you know, they're going to have the best experience if they're the only ones on their internet connection, you know, and their other 3 roommates aren't all watching Netflix at the same time, or, you know, playing video games and watching Netflix, things like that. So it was really just making sure students understood, you know, many of the proctoring companies, you know, we do have a pretty robust kind of tested out equipment process. And that's something that we realized is pretty central to students feeling comfortable with taking the exam, that, you know, there won't be an issue there. So I would say that was one of the largest, you know, is just the technical component, getting them comfortable, understanding what the environment was going to be like, that to the best they could, you know, mimic that before they got in their exam.
Right. And do you foresee any issues, you know, especially for the institutions, you know, obviously many of them don't know, but those who do and or find out later that they are going to be predominantly online in the fall, and fall being typically a, you know, bigger term, a higher enrollment term,
Right.
hopefully again, you know, this year and under these circumstances, do you foresee any new issues, or has this given you I guess, advice to give to the institutions on, okay, here's what we saw, you know, especially in the spring.
Right.
Here are some suggestions for, you know, talking to students, explaining the proctoring and, you know, moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll say from the simplest things that we developed the hard way, or not the hard way, but just out of necessity quickly, you know, like FAQs and things like that, you know. I think because students and faculty, and they were it was mandated that they use a particular service, and they had a lot of questions, right? And when it's, you know, sometimes when it's not your choice, or you feel like a decision has been made for you, then you kind of go in and scrutinize, you know, things maybe more normally than you would. So a lot of what came out of that is we now have FAQs that really put it in, you know, some of the simplest terms in layman's terms about our privacy policy, our terms of service, how long we keep our data. And we've always been transparent about it. It just always hasn't been, I guess, readily available in that format. And having discussions at all levels about that, I would say, you know, so we have really easy ways through hotlines and emails to get in touch with us. So students email all the time and ask small to, you know, really to 8-part questions, and just making sure we, you know, answer all those. I mean, on our side, that's kind of the best, but you're right. From a playbook standpoint, just the earlier the better, of just faculty saying, hey, this is an option, and if we go this route, these are the expectations, this is what it's like, you know. The very often, depending on how the institution set up, the faculty is kind of our best advocate, right, for communicating to the students, because although we have reminder emails upon scheduling and we have a student resource center, we don't directly just go to the students, you know, it's really the faculty. So ensuring just the sooner we can onboard the faculty and get them prepared for, you know, if they go to online assessments, this is what it's going to look like. And so the students can be prepared. I would say that's the biggest. And we now have that down on, you know, what's the best timeline? What are some things to be aware of? Our support, we've done quite a bit of work on just support, and making sure that students have, that it's a lot easier for students to do some of the things they need to do in our system. So.
Right. That's good. And then also in dealing, you know, with the students, and at least with whatever data has been collected thus far, are you seeing any kind of changes in terms of either, you know, quality or, say, cheating metrics? Anything in terms of an increase, a decrease, or pretty much staying the same?
Right. So it is really interesting. I mean, we did see there's two factors that we're trying to really see what the with the cheating rates, because they have increased, right? So I'm a data nerd, so this is what we're looking at right now. So you may make the assumption we have a lot of people using a technology, because what we actually find is when we have institutions we've worked with a long time, students know what to expect. They know the proctor's watching them. They know they can't come into the environment and have a lot of textbooks, even if they're not for, their math course. It's a psych textbook. They can't have it on their desk. So they come in much more prepared. They know the drill, and they know, and we do see institutions we've worked with a long time. There is a much, there's a huge reduction in cheating, because students know this is not really something I can get away with ProctorU, because somebody's watching me, and, there's other indicate that they'll catch me cheating. So what's interesting about that is, of course, our assumptions are that means there's going to be a spike, because these are first test time takers that may think, and we didn't really see this huge spike. We've seen a gradual increase, but it's also because, we have hired, there's kind of a dip at first, and then it started to increase with some of our cheating metrics. So we look at a few different metrics, just full academic integrity incidents where an individual was very blatantly trying to cheat, and, even after intervention. But we also, some of that also that we're looking at is a factor of, we did onboard a number of proctors during this period of time, and now they've gained more and more and more experience in the system. So you could also see an increase there, right? Of that they're more comfortable with, identifying what an academic integrity event is and things of that nature. So that's something we're looking at more granularly right now. But I don't know if they align with all the assumptions. We also have test takers that, because they're not familiar with our system, they're really, they're going to follow it by the book, right? And often these were finals, wrapping up the, an entire semester. So we're still looking into that, Matt. I don't have a clear-cut answer, but we did see some movement in the data. And I'm interested to see, because many universities are online for summer, what those look like. We're happy to always share that with you. We try to put out a lot of information into, on our website. We have an integrity and action space that has data, and we try to put out a lot of materials and thought leadership with that kind of data. So I'll make sure that everyone gets all that stuff.
Yeah, because we did have a question. Lynn was asking, about trying to find, where could we find the statistics, and then she clarified, especially about the cheating being on the rise. So it'll be on the ProctorU website.
Yes, there's an integrity in action, and then we do have one pretty big white paper that's coming out within the next month that should have a lot of that data as well.
Okay, good. All right, so we've got about 5 minutes left, so I'll ask one more question and then see if anybody else has any questions to add to it. Kind of in general, what advice would you give to a school or an instructor that's considering online proctoring, especially either now in the summer or as they find out they're going to be online in the fall?
Sure. I would say number one is just preparation, because that's, is to set it up. And some of this is what's happening with some of the institutions we're already working with, is they're playing with a flex model where they can, essentially if schools shut down, it's more of a hybrid model that they can go fully online, and they're setting up the courses that way inside the LMS, even though they'll be face-to-face. I'm not sure on this call what the particular what many of these individuals, what your institution's doing, but that does, when it comes to online proctoring, it's going to take a lot more strategic planning, right? Even for a lot of faculty, instructors, administrators. And so what does the course look like? So, if you're going to have an objective assessment that needs to be proctored, or your, discipline definitely will require online proctoring, then just preparing, I would say, students for, if we go fully online and you can't be assessed in the classroom, then this may happen. And these are go ahead and get them prepared and get that thought in their head, to where if they have any questions early on, I guess it depends as well, because students, they all have different or similar experiences with remote proctoring. I mean, it is really interesting. I've even anecdotally, cousins, family, friends, whatever, many of them have had maybe one course with it. If it's not, if they aren't in a discipline, for instance, like nursing or business, where it's more frequent, or a online program, right, but many of them have had a course where they have had exposure to maybe one course. So just kind of level setting that, of especially the students that have had no exposure to it, trying to get them prepared or just understand what it is. So.
Okay. All right. And we did have a question while you were talking. Sure. Ira asked, what is the latest thinking on handwritten assessments or tablets?
So tablets, are you saying handwritten assessments like paper pencil, or using a tablet?
Yes, paper pencil or tablet.
Okay.
Apparently.
So we do. So like I said, our platform is really, it's optimal for computer-based assessments. It just is. Our artificial intelligence, how it works, the technology works, how the visibility of the proctor watching the test taker is all focused around them taking a test online on the screen, right? Not to say we do also have the capability to proctor paper pen exams. Like I mentioned before, or to use scratch paper, something like that. We have processes for that, because that's typically why a faculty member may want to use a paper pen, is for that scratch paper component. They want the students to show their work. So we do have a process for that. Like I spoke about before, one of the things that we started working with in partnership with other companies and organizations is how conversion techniques for some of those paper pen exams, because it may not be as simple as, oh, I have 30 questions, I'll just put 30 questions in Canvas and they can take their exam, right? Some of them there's different types of questions. Engineering programs, different programs have different needs. So I think also talking through those capabilities and just seeing, what's the reason why to keep it on paper pen? That's really the question. What are you trying to solve for there, right? With tablets, as of now, ProctorU cannot be delivered on tablets. We've had some, long-term projects where we've looked at mobile device, at tablets, things of that nature. So those are in progress and discovery, but right now, you need a laptop or a desktop.
Thank you, Ashley. We're at the hour now, or at the half hour, I should say. That's what we had for time. Ira did say she meant a tablet connected to a USB port. Not sure if that changes your answer much or not. But I did want to thank you again for being here. Again, this is Amy with OLC. Thank you, ProctorU, for sponsoring this OLC Live, as well as Carolina Distance Learning, and Matt for being our host.
Thank you.
If you want to fill out a session evaluation, you can do so. You can enter the drawing. We also have the on-demand recordings going forward, which will be available for 1 year post-conference. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.